At the beginning of what you were saying, you were pointing out that the Taliban are very prohibitionist, which is probably understating it quite a lot. But my understanding is that the conventional wisdom is that to a large extent they funded their operations throughout the war from the opium trade. Is that not correct?
The assumption that the Taliban are entirely funded by the production of opium is a sketchy assumption. They are funded by all sorts of different things, and it may well be that they were funded in their isolation in part by the taxation of people who produce opium. But this picture that's painted of them being responsible for the growth in heroin production before the Afghan war and afterwards is just ludicrous, because they are, well, they present as staunchly prohibitionist, and their public-facing image is, but you get mixed information from Afghanistan in that they are quite happy to tax across the border whatever those goods may be, as long as there's an agreement in place with the people producing it. So, for example, what I have heard from some sources is that the Taliban were actually making more money from facilitating the trade in ephedra. Now, ephedra, as a precursor for the production of methamphetamine, is the other great Afghanistan drug story, because in the last few years, Afghanistan and North Pakistan-based methamphetamine produced from their natural resource of the ephedra plant as a precursor has been showing up in much bigger distances than ever before. And it's actually becoming quite dominant in the marketplace. It's showing up in the lucrative marketplace of South Africa, which is extremely lucrative, and also across Southeast Asia and even in Australia. So you can tell where methamphetamine comes from by the breakdown of the precursors and tracing that kind of chemical origin. And the growth of that is extraordinary. And if anything, it's been an even bigger growth in the last few years than the dominance of the Afghan poppy in the heroin market. Now, it's hard to, and I'm getting mixed information. I'm getting contradictory information. That's the problem. So that it's difficult to draw a complete conclusion. But I think it's reasonable to suspect that the Taliban has been getting some of their money from the taxation of that production and that smuggling, especially as they have been controlling a lot of the places where the ephedra plant is being grown and harvested. Again, this is information that I've been told. In terms of any specific data, I can only go on what I've been told here. But it's interesting, and certainly there is data available about where Afghan methamphetamine is turning up. So, for example, when I say South Africa, there is actually produced law enforcement data about that fact. If the references are published by the Global Initiative, for example.
So if, as you say, that the Taliban were actually not the driving force behind the growth of opium during the years of the war, does that then mean that it was instead the people being backed by NATO that were the ones responsible primarily?
Well, the growth of the opium poppy, it's been other warlords, and I use the word warlords because that's the way the term tends to be used in the region, from how it's told to me. And this is, militias that protect the growth of those opium poppies, and they're essentially just an armed front of transnational organised crime. They're the local employees of organised crime smuggling groups. And some journalists have speculated that there's a great potential for civil war in Afghanistan, and some political commentaries have said the same. I've been told the same as well, and that's because these warlords, these smaller militias, are threatening conflict with the Taliban if there is a strict prohibitionist regime put in place that will interfere with their business.